Hello, and welcome to another episode of Climb, the Confident Leader podcast, where we share stories of leaders moving from being invisible to becoming an influencer. I'm your host, Rahul Karan Sharma, and I'm here with an amazing guest today. It's an entrepreneur, Wall Street Journal, best-selling author of not one, two, but three books, sought-after keynote speaker. He has built companies in Europe and Canada and led client projects across the world. His area of expertise are strategy development, leadership development, and entrepreneurship. He's a storyteller with an academic background in journal management with degrees from EBS University, INSEE, and prestigious Harvard Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alex Brueckmann on our show. Welcome to our show, Alex. How are you doing today?
Thanks for the kind introduction and the invite, Rahul. I'm doing great.
So tell me, Alex, what has been your leadership journey? I know you have done some great work for your clients. For our listeners, please enlighten us with your leadership journey.
Well, when we say leadership, we really need to understand what leadership is, right? And leadership can come in many forms. I have had quite a range of different exposures. Let me put it that way. Like if you think about leadership, you often typically think about a corporate career and becoming a leader in a business, first of individual contributors, later of other leaders, and then maybe of whole organizational units. So my corporate career is actually only 5 or 6 years long in my history. And the reason for that is I've had a bit of an entrepreneurial stint before that and realized relatively quickly that the entrepreneurial part is what is more fulfilling to me, like building businesses from the ground up. And hiring people and leading these people and helping these people grow. I've had my fair share of failure as well as a leader, like when you realize there are things you could have done differently to help your people grow. But I also had these moments where you're like, I can't believe this is actually working. This is amazing, right? When you build a business from the ground up and you see it grow 4, 5, 6 years, and you're then at a point where you're like, this was awesome, but I think I want to go back to like building again, like starting again, and repeating that cycle. And leadership also comes in the shape of helping other leaders succeed, not necessarily from a position of leadership as a title, but as in my work right now or over the past 15 years, more or less, the role and the way I can lead in an organization is from the outside in, as a facilitator, as an executive coach, as someone who asks questions because they have no ramifications to fear, like seeing things, pointing them out, and helping people get their head around those things, especially leaders. Addressing the topics that they know are holding them back or are holding their teams back, that they're often reluctant to really touch because there are consequences, especially to failure. So these different aspects of leadership, building businesses on my own, having that leadership experience in a corporate environment, and also then as an executive coach, helping other leaders succeed, has been very fulfilling for me over the past few decades.
Awesome. That's so great that you were fortunate to help others. And you can only help others when you are able to do things in a way it should be done. So you know that that code, you know that recipe of making it happen. So kudos to you. A curious question, Alex. So you mentioned that before you started your corporate career, you had some entrepreneurial stint. For our listeners, how do someone recognize that entrepreneurship is for them or a corporate job is for them? I know you also had that kind of a dilemma, but you very quickly navigated to building businesses. So any thoughts on those lines? How one can identify if entrepreneurship is for them or not?
This is a very good question. And I think at some point in your life, you might feel that entrepreneurship is for you and you try and you fail. And then you might be like, I guess it's not for me after all.
Mm.
And you decide against an entrepreneurial route and maybe go a solopreneur route, or you go a corporate route, maybe become a consultant, whatever it might be, is only a picture. It's a snapshot in time. My first few entrepreneurial stints weren't very successful, like from a purely commercial perspective, but I learned a lot. And all these learnings helped me later in different stages in my career. And they also encouraged me to go solo again at some point and rebuild a new business later in my career, like just relatively recently, 5 years ago. Now, the thing is, if I look back, my first few entrepreneurial steps, I made them when I was around 20, 21 years old. And of course, you make mistakes. What are you at 2021? You know nothing. You have no experience. You don't have a real gut feeling yet, because that means you need experience. You don't have experience at that age. So it's just normal that you make mistakes. And I was a very stubborn and close-minded person at that age, which is not all too uncommon, I would say. Again, you don't have a lot of experience. So all these lessons that I learned back then, I didn't really use them until I was much older. So, but that kind of, those lessons came back to me, and they came back and they came back and they came back over time. So I realized over time that entrepreneurship is for me, that this is the route for me to go. And that was kind of a positive reinforcement. You can also approach it from a different angle. 6 years in big corporate also taught me that I'm not made for this environment. There are processes and structures and management systems in place in these organizations who help run the organization in a stable way. And while they have their merits, they also are slow and hold people back from moving fast. Most of these organizations, especially larger organizations, they have been around for a long time. And when you have an entrepreneurial gene inside you, you want to make things work quick. And not every large organization can support an environment where both things are true: stability to run a large organization and space for entrepreneurial action. Now, if you realize you are in an environment where your creativity and your entrepreneurial spirit is being hampered, then this is more the negative side of things, where you realize that entrepreneurship might be for you because the other thing apparently isn't. So I would always approach it from those two angles and allow yourself to recalibrate at certain stages in your life. Just because something was true in your 20s doesn't mean it has to be true 10 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's this concept I read in a book about elephant thinking, which is when you see something not happening at a younger age, you believe that will never happen for you in the future.
Yeah.
And as you rightly mentioned, things can change for good, change for worse. But recognizing that we can evolve, we can change, it is something very important. Look at where your entrepreneurial spirit is getting support, whether the organization is there to move fast, move quick. Otherwise, then you need to take a call which way you want to move. But thank you for sharing those two aspects. Now,
I
Alex,
want to share a third aspect, if I may.
please.
Your personal circumstances as you go through life change drastically. If you find a partner, when you put kids into this world, for example, like those are huge decisions that you make in your life. Maybe you need to be a caretaker for your parents at some point. And all these different life events can also inform what type of job is the right one for you at each of these stages. I, for my part, decided against building a business from the ground up 5 years ago. I decided to stay solo. I wanted to run lean, a very, very lean operation, but I wanted to be a very small company on purpose. The reason is very simple. 5 years ago, I became a dad for the first time. And it was basically a decision: do I rebuild a business? Do I hire people? Do I expand? Do I grow like crazy? Or do I take this unique opportunity in my life to be present in the life of my first and only child? And I knew I can build a business in 5-10 years again, but I
Sure.
cannot go back and spend time with my son.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was also something that was interesting for me, because I felt like being the sole breadwinner for our family at that point, I had to pay the bills. And it's easy then to take a decision and be like, well, I think I go for a salary job. That's the easy road, right?
Mm,
But if you allow yourself to explore other options, it's there is not just I am self-employed and or I work as salary job. There are nuances in between. And realizing that one thing might be a good fit for the next 5 years and then embracing it with the knowledge that you can
mm.
always reevaluate your decision at some point, that was very liberating for me personally. And
Wow.
it's actually what's happening right now. As we talk, we're transitioning from where we were, like primarily parents and
Mm,
making living as solopreneurs, to keeping those smaller operations in place, but adding more and more companies to our portfolio that
wow.
we manage and lead. And that is something that now becomes possible as our child is older and
Hmm.
has like
Hmm.
starting school, and there are friends and other people in our ecosystem that co-parent, co-raise the child. And let's be honest, the older the kids get, the uncooler the parents become, and they want to spend more time with their friends anyway. So that allows us to
Absolutely.
do different things with our time.
Absolutely. As a parent of two kids, I can very much resonate with that thought process, and I believe that the more time you spend in the early stage of their life, the stronger the bond is, because eventually they will have to part ways to be with your friends, because we will not understand their lingo, or they will not understand what we want to do. So yes, you rightly mentioned it's the right time. Uh, Alex, I also know one of the books that you wrote was Strategy Legacy, and I believe it argues leader don't need to have a position, power to drive results. Now, for our listeners, most of the young professionals, they go for the title, they go for that, till I have that managerial title or a leadership title, I will not be able to do this, I will not be able to do that. How you define leadership without authority?
Well, I think what you described is something that there will always be a certain amount of certain part of leaders who are in it for the title, for the corner office, for the perks, for the
Mhm.
societal recognition, if you want. Um, and I understand that. However, the people that the senior leaders that I've been working with, the most successful ones, were the ones that were results oriented, not title oriented. Like they didn't care about all the perks. That's just stuff that comes with leadership responsibility. And leadership responsibility and leadership position are not the same thing. Um, some of the most influential people that I've worked with actually weren't senior leaders with positional power. They were leaders in the second row. For example, chiefs of staff that were
Mhm.
very influential, that had an extremely strong network in their organization, and that were respected as an authority because of the quality of those relationships, not because
Mhm.
of a position or a title. Um, I even had the pleasure of working with, let's say, people with titles that others would often just overlook and be like, yeah, not important. Um,
Mhm.
for example, executive assistants. Executive assistants can be gatekeepers to senior leaders. They can be your door opener. They can be your power sponsor. Although
Sure.
you think it's just an executive assistant. Yes, that
Mhm.
might be true, but a title is just a title. And titles are being used in very, very different ways in different organizations.
Mhm.
What is a important title in one organization might be used in another organization to describe an entry position. It is really interesting. If you free yourself from anything that is around positions or titles, you often realize that the biggest joy in work comes from knowing who the right people are that you can actually move the world with, achieve something with. And it's those types of people that I enjoy working with the most. Their success is a consequence. Their positional power is a consequence. Their authority is a consequence of how they show up, the intention that they put into how they show up, how they treat others, how they lead, and how it's not about them as leaders. It's about those that they have around them and helping those people become more successful. Then these people may or may not be part of their own teams. It is about creating a personal brand as a leader that attracts talent. And that comes from building strong relationships and investing in relationships. And I think this is, I don't want to say it's a lost art, but I always ask myself, why am I not seeing this more often? The research is 100% clear. We know that what makes people successful are relationships. So I just hope that, and I see very positive signs. The more, let's say, younger generations come into leadership positions, the more I see a different intention in their actions, in their behaviors as leaders. I deliberately say different. I don't say better or worse. I say different, because we have yet to recognize and see the long-term results of that.
Sure.
But I strongly enjoy working with people that show up based on authority that is relationship-based and command respect because of who they are as leaders, not because of titles or positions that they hold.
I think very beautifully put around leading without title and focusing on the relationship. And I also argue with my own mind sometimes that why, when everything is so crystal clear, that lead without title, lead with relationship, lead with heart, still we see leaders who become very, very territorial just for their team, just for their department, and as if anyone who is not part of their team, they are not even bothered. And I always say to my clients, Alex, the moment you become a leader or the moment you get the title of a manager, you are not just manager for those 5 people or that one group, you're a manager for the organization. So your responsibility is for the upliftment of the entire organization and not just that one team or one department. So thank you for bringing that up, the relationship of knowing people and invest in that relationship. Sometimes when you are having a conversation, you know that conversation is not leading towards a dollar value, that you know that conversation is not leading towards the bottom line, but still that conversation is important because when you listen to people, when you understand them, that's where you really make a difference. So now, on that note, Alex, what would be your advice for our young professionals? What kind of mindset shift they need to have to build their role as an influencer leader where they can also lead without title?
Let me put it that way. If you realize you are in an environment where positional power is kind of a thing, where everyone is looking to become a king and queen in their own little part of the sandbox, and you realize that that's not you, get out of there. It's just not worth it to fight against an entire system. You will not change the system. Systems cannot be changed if you are just entering the workforce, if you are about to become a leader the first time. Those kinds of changes need to happen from the top because that is a different culture that the organization needs, and that cannot be installed from the bottom up. It needs to be installed from the top down, where courageous senior executives see what needs to change and then are courageous enough to actually go through a process of changing what matters in an organization and why. If an organization for years has become, as you said, if leaders have become territorial, if they understand the people that they lead as their team, then you already know that there is an understanding of leadership at play that is not collaborative. It is competitive. Don't get me wrong, a bit of competition has never hurt anyone. But if you understand your role as a leader as being an advocate for the entire business, and everyone else around you is taking advantage of that, then that's just not a nice, joyful place to work. Instead, look for an organization where the people that you lead have not voted you into office, okay? So don't show up like a politician shows up in Congress as an elected official for their constituents. That's not your role. Your role is, with other leaders together, make it work and help the organization create strong strategy and create strong culture that together form what we would call a competitive advantage that will help you win in your market. Now, if you realize that there is just a ton of competition inside an organization for that next leadership title, and that people fight over budgets and over resources all the time, then this is an environment where this type of relationship-oriented leadership and this type of the understanding that you are an advocate for the entire business, not just for the team that you are responsible for. If you realize you're in an environment that is that shows these signs of unhealthy environment and unhealthy culture, then you can either fight and change it, at least in your sphere of influence, or you start looking for an environment where your theory of leadership, where your approach, your philosophy to being a servant for people will allow you to become the leader that you aspire to be.
Absolutely. Be aware of what is happening around you and making sure that you are going in the right direction. And that's where, a coach or a mentor comes in, where they can let you know about your blind spot. Sometimes it's not that we do things because we always want to do it. We are doing things because we think it's the right way, and no one has told us that is not the right way. So invest yourself in a coach or a mentor that will help you in identifying that blind spot. Alex, I also noticed that you talk a lot about self-leadership or building confidence in people. And you have a certification, 9 EOI Strategy certification.
Yes.
So tell us more about that certification and how this program of yours help our leaders, next generation leaders, develop that confidence, self-leadership without having a formal authority.
The thing is, if I remember my own first few years in business and the conversations that happen, that you get involved in, for example, around strategy, around leadership, or around culture, you literally have no idea what's going on in the room. You have never been there. You have no idea what these people talk about, because most of the time, you most likely don't have a business degree. So you haven't talked about strategy in let's say, in a business context. And you might have grown your leadership career based on a subject matter expertise that you have. You might be an engineer. You might be a doctor of medicine, and all of a sudden you lead, right? All of a sudden you are being looked at by your people, and they're like, where's this going? We need a strategy. And everyone's looking at you, because now all of a sudden you're a leader and you are responsible to contribute to strategy design and strategy execution, but you have no concept or framework about what do you even talk about, because you have no experience in it whatsoever. Now, this can be really detrimental to your confidence as a leader. When you sit in a room and you're like, I have no idea what these people talk about. And maybe you can fake it till you make it. So you go through these annual strategy reviews, or as many organizations call it, strategic planning sessions. And you just learn over the years of, this is apparently how it's being done. This is apparently what strategy is. But you only see a very small snapshot of how this organization interprets the topic of strategy. But because you haven't seen much else, this becomes your reality. And you think, after going through that cycle, maybe 3 or 4 times, you think you know what strategy is. You might even call yourself a strategic leader. But this is not because you are, it's because of this massive blind spot of the possibilities of what strategy can do for you. If you do not allow yourself to look left and right, and you only get educated as you go by how the leaders in your organization interpret strategy, then this interpretation becomes your understanding of strategy as well. And you're basically perpetuating a certain understanding of strategy that is true in your organizational setting. And I'm not even saying that this is not helpful. I'm just saying that the moment you leave that ecosystem, you will realize that everyone else around you interprets strategy in a completely different way. Now, that the fact is, people leave jobs all the time. They move from one organization to the next. And as a result, we typically have leadership teams or executive teams that consist of individuals that each one has a completely different understanding of what strategy is, or at least an interpretation of what strategy is that is so different that they often cannot even find a common terminology to align around and use when designing and implementing new strategy. Sure. And that is what we address with the 9 EOI Strategy certification. So we help leaders gain an understanding of what strategy is, how they can use it to lead from wherever they are in the organization and contribute to strong strategy design. And then we help them with, based on us doing this for 15, 20 years, with all types of framework, processes, templates to understand what you need to design and implement successful strategy, and doing that in the context of your organizational culture based on the leader that you are. So 9 EOI stands for 9 elements of organizational identity. And when we talk about those 9 elements, we literally talk about your cultural core, the strategic choices that you make, and the execution edge that you build to bring all this into action. And that is something that I haven't seen anywhere before. And it is the reason why I designed the program at the back end of the Strategy Legacy, the book that I wrote. So the Strategy Legacy outlines that framework and outlines that process. And in the certification program, we actually teach leaders how to do it.
Wow. I think that is such a great skill to develop, especially when you are not coming from a business background and suddenly become a leader. It's a great course to get into, because I know when you learn by doing or by just following, it takes years. Yeah. And things are changing. So whatever you are learning may not be relevant when you actually learn it. So, but this, if you learn in the right way, things would be different for you. Just like sports, when you learn the sports right from the basics, no matter how old you are, you will still know those basics. Those basics will still be relevant. But if you just learn just for sake of playing a game and not from the basic, then you may fell into the trap of unknown. So thank you, Alex, for designing this certification program. I'm very confident that it will be very, very helpful for our upcoming leaders, as well as leaders who are not coming from the business background.
No. Very interesting to take a look at our cohorts. We have people from all around the world. Like literally, there are people. So the program runs typically at morning hours in a Pacific time zone. And in the last cohort, we had someone call in from Singapore. The program started at 11:30 at night and ran until 3:30 in the morning for them. The dedication of these people is just insane. It's so wonderful to see that. And we have like CEOs of large organizations in this training, all the way to solopreneurs or young professionals that are preparing for their first leadership role. And this diversity across culture, across countries, across continents, across experiences is what everyone tells me is the best part of the program for them, because they talk about strategy, they create strategy in the program with a ton of different perspectives. And that is a key part of the learning when it comes to building your leadership muscle, when it comes to building your strategic acumen, that you don't just listen to someone like me, but that you practice learning from others. And that is that is something that most of the participants that go through 9UI have told me was an unexpected add-on that they really enjoyed.
Wow. Wow, excellent. I'm sure they will be doing a lot of value add for their organization as well as for the leaders or the people that they are leading. Now, as you mentioned that there are many C-level executives coming on this program, but from a different background, different ethnicity, different culture. Now, based on your experience working with global leaders, what are some outcomes that you have seen people when they have applied your methods, applied your strategic intervention? Share with us. I know you did share a few, but give us more meat to it, like what kind of success they have seen.
I think we need to distinguish when we take a look at who we work with. So if you look at the organizations that we work with, larger organizations, they often send, over the course of a few months, they would send 5 to 10 leaders into the 9UI strategy certification. And when I realized that, I wasn't like, this was never something that I advertised, but I realized they were sending more and more leaders. And when I started asking why that is, I mean, obviously I'm super happy to work with these people, but I also want to understand why they do that. They told me that because they send a certain amount of people over time, they reshape the language people use in the business based on a common understanding of what strategy can look like, of how they want to lead strategy, and how they want to anchor it in their culture. And that was an absolute revelation for me. So not only do they want to have 2 or 3 people in a business that kind of can lead the process, they want to multiply that knowledge because it creates a common language, it creates a common approach, and thereby removes friction from the process, which makes the process smoother and faster. So they realize that having a certain amount of individuals go through a program like that helps them create a thinking that is not aligned in terms of the content, but in terms of the process and the frameworks that they apply. And this was, for these organizations, very, very helpful as they reshape what strategy and culture looks like in their business. And by doing that, they kind of rebuild and do that in a cohesive way. So imagine you have an executive team or a senior leadership team of 10 individuals, and they all went through this program over time. Imagine sitting in with these people, talk about strategy, refine their strategy. Like they just speak the same language, like exactly what we said a few minutes ago, Rahul, when we said, imagine you're new in an executive team and everyone has a different understanding. This is exactly what disappears. Like everyone has the same understanding, and not in terms of what should be done, but in terms of how you approach problem solving, how you approach conversations, and what becomes important in the context of strategy. It's not just the strategy, it's the culture, it's how you execute the strategy, how you build the muscles and the brains in the organization to approaching strategic and cultural questions the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a very good output to have for an organization when people right from all corners of the team or leadership, they start speaking the same language, listening to the same language, interpreting the same way, and really they synchronize just like how the music is synchronized. Thank you. I think that's a great asset to have and a great accolade to get from those multi-billion-dollar organizations. Now, I also know that there is a program or a new certification program coming up, new batch coming up in September. Tell us, the listeners who are very excited to work with you, very excited to be part of this certification program, how they can find more information, how they can connect with you, how they can work with you.
I mean, if you dare to write my name, which has German origin, you can go to brueckmann.ca, which is BRUECKMANN.ca. And there you will find a ton of free resources and information, obviously also about the certification program. But there are also free online courses that I offer and other resources that can help you get your head around becoming a stronger strategic leader. Now, if you want to join the strategy certification program, which is a live program, it's online. So we use Zoom 3 days in a row, 4 hours each day. It is something that you can weave into your day. So it's not like you need to leave your job for 3 entire days. So you just do it on the fly, on the go. These sessions are highly interactive. So it's not just me standing there preaching. It's actually me helping you experience how to create those 9 elements. Like, how do you write a vision statement that is not just a fancy marketing claim that you put on your website, but actually something that has meaning and that can help you lead change and transformation in your business? How do you anchor a strategy in your cultural core? Like, how do you do that? How do you build the capabilities in the organization that are strategically relevant, that help people perform differently, and therefore support the strategy? How you create that line of sight from how you measure individual performance to their contribution to strategy and culture. Like, it's those kinds of things, like really hands-on. How do you do that? If you expect someone to give you just another framework, this program is not for you. This program is for people who want to use a framework and do something with it and create tangible, measurable results. And if you're up for that, be welcome. We work in small groups. Like, a cohort is not like 100 people. It's much, much smaller than that. So we really want to work with people that are ready to make a difference.
Awesome. I'm sure we will include all this information on the show notes. So now we want to move into the fun rapid fire round, Alex, where we ask 5 questions with all of our guests, and we want you to respond to that question without thinking too much. Okay? You ready,
Sounds
man?
good. I'm ready. Let's go.
Awesome. A quotation you live by.
Madonna, don't go for second best, baby.
Oh, don't go for second best, baby. Okay. Your go-to food you can eat anytime, anywhere.
Homemade pizza. I love pizza. I always love pizza. And if I find the time, I prepare it myself.
Excellent. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I used to be a night owl, but that has shifted. Now that I'm a parent to a 5-year-old, he has retrained me to get up early.
That's very good. And what's one leadership skill you wish someone had taught you earlier?
Humility. I don't even know whether that's a skill or not, but humility is absolutely a key ingredient for any leader.
Wow, very good. Humility. And if your career were a Netflix series, Alex, what would be the title of season 1 be?
Oh my goodness. I have no clue how I would call that. It is the first thing that came to mind was kind of Breaking Bad, but it's more like the opposite. It's like a Breaking Bad in reverse, maybe.
Breaking Bad reverse. Wow.
You start from a position of total mayhem and chaos, and then over the course of the series, you would create more clarity and come out at the other end as well, as someone who finally knows what they want to do in life and have that clarity and direction.
Wow. So it's more on focusing on having a chaos and then getting a clarity at the end. Great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of our show. And at this point in time, I want to share my learnings. There are a lot of golden nuggets that were dropped by Alex throughout the show. I will share a few of mine, and I'm sure you will have a lot of yours. So please do mention in the comments what is your favorite pick from the show. The first one I realized was about how to choose if you are there to do an entrepreneurial work or corporate, focusing on the speed, focusing on your personal situation, and focusing on whether your organization is supporting that entrepreneurial spirit or not. So there are multiple angles, and if these angles you are able to get a response, that would be the one that will allow you to move out or stay in your corporate job. Leadership not by title but by relationship. So Alex talked about how building relationship, how investing in relationship is a key attribute for leaders. And you lead with purpose, not for yourself, but for the people around you. He gave an excellent example of executive assistant, how benefit they could be to you. But if you just look at the title, some may just not talk to them. And I know for sure there are so many people, when emails are in their inbox, they only respond to email with people who are having a big title. That's a big no-no. So if you are listening to our episode and if you are doing it, please stop. You need to treat people the way they are. The last one I would say is Alex mentioned about the skill, the leadership skill critical is the humility. Be humble, show the act of kindness. These are some of the things that will take you places. And if you are struggling with strategy, if you are struggling with people talking different language, make sure you reach out to Alex and his team to check out this 9 EOI certification, strategy certification program. So that was all the learnings I had. There were many more, but in the essence of time, this is what I could share. Before we let you go, Alex, any final words of wisdom for our young leaders, young entrepreneurs listening to our episode?
I think I want to elaborate quickly on what don't go for second best baby really means when you're a leader. You will come across many situations in your life where you realize there is an easy way out and there's a right way of doing things. And the right way often is the most difficult way, and it is the path forward that will, over the long run, give you the best return on investment. And you should not go for second best, because second best will always be the most expensive solution for you. I mean, if you buy a cheap drill, that cheap drill will break most likely much sooner than the next better, like the best option. So if you want to save money, spend money on the right things. If you want to grow a leadership career, do the hard work in the beginning. It will pay back dividends, I don't know how many times during your career. And that is what I mean when I say don't go for second best baby.
Awesome. There's another golden nugget dropped by Alex. Focus on things doing the right way rather than the easier way. On that note, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all your support. Keep sharing, keep liking, and keep putting your comments on the show, and share with someone who needs. Share with the leaders who are in making. And thank you, Alex, again for being on our show. We really appreciate the time, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you very much for having me.